This is ContactTalkRadio.com. Consciousness in action. And you are taking action into your consciousness by tuning into Contact Talk Radio.
And on TuneIn.com, Ping.fm, and UpSnap Mobile.
Contact Talk Radio.
Welcome to Life Mastery with Todd Allen, the talk radio show that dives into the science of higher consciousness. Join Todd and his guests weekly at 10 a.m. Pacific Time and learn how to live a peaceful life with intentional mastery. Enjoy a survey of inspiring topics such as abundance, intention, health, manifestation, love, and transformation. It's all right here. Leading authors, speakers, coaches, entrepreneurs with stories and messages to support your well-being, let alone your most evocative dreams.
Hey, it's another groovy day, and most of you already know, but I'm going to say it anyway. That's because I make it that way. When I get up every morning, I decide before my feet hit the floor, it's going to be a groovy day, and here's the secret. It turns out to be a really groovy day. So that's my plan when I start out each day. If something else happens, I just think back and things turn out groovy. It's a pretty cool way to do it. Welcome to Life Mastery Radio, the talk show that brings you great thoughts and ideas for you to use on your very own life mastery journey. And can you imagine what it would be like mastering your wisdom? If you could master your wisdom, that's what we're going to talk about today. And we have an author and an amazing book to present to you that I think it's life-changing. We'll talk about that some more. But before we get started, let's just take a minute and think about and anchor in our minds, what is it that you connect to get your wisdom? Where do you get your wisdom from? What is it that you connect to? It could be God, it could be Allah, it could be the dude, it could be the tree, the door that opens up to your office. What brings you your wisdom? Think about that or question it. And let's take in a deep breath. And now let that breath out with just a ah, and let your essence flow up through your heart center, throat chakra, and right out of your speaker box out into the universe. And think about that connection. Let's do that one more time. This time, think about your dreams, visions, and goals. What is it that you aspire to be, do, or have? Getting close to the end of the year. I think we're in the last quarter. We're really close to the last quarter. We're really close to the end of summer. Shh, don't tell no one. But think about your dreams. What is it that you aspire to be? Let's take in a deep breath. And again, out with it, just a big ah. And let that flow up through your throat chakra and out of the speaker box, out to the universe. Now here's the deal. Allow the universe the opportunity to make those come true for you, because that's how it works. Chin up, tail out from between our legs, looking for that opportunity because it's coming your way. Hi, Jackie. I want to welcome my co-host. She's here every week. This is just a really cool thing that her and I get to do, and I totally appreciate you being here riding shotgun.
It's nice to have a partner, right?
Yeah.
Partner in crime.
Yeah, I think so. And we get to connect with some really cool people. And today's book, this book is just really cool. It's been a while since a book really jumped out and said,
read me.
Not only that, but keep me. Yeah. This is a book you want to have around everywhere. You know, I used to walk through Barnes and Nobles back in the days of the bookstores, and books would just jump out at me, and I'd grab it and I'd savor it. And this is a book. I only got the PDF, but I can guarantee this much: I'll be getting a hard copy.
There is nothing quite like the smell of books, right? The actual book. And the feel of it in your hands and flipping through those pages. There's something, I don't know, therapeutic or
aromatherapy. You know,
about that.
That's funny that nobody's ever caught on to that, because that would be a huge seller if you put aromatherapy. I know I used to get coffee every morning from this coffee lady in a coffee box, and she had perfume or something, but it would always be on the lid. And I'd take a swig of coffee and it'd be like, okay, I'm ready to go. It was better than the coffee almost. Then one day I said something to her about it and she said, really? Oh, I'm so sorry. I don't mean to have that happen. It must be lotion or something. And I said, no, you're onto something. This, because it puts the perk in my step. So
that's funny.
Cool. That's very funny. Well, Jackie, how are things going with the Speak Feed Lead or .org project?
Yeah, we're okay. I mean, we'd like to have more students. It's really hard for parents right now. They're getting kids back in school. Things are still uncertain, even though the schools are, I think, really trying to be normal again. But what my students are telling me is that the teachers are really piling on the work. It's almost as if to make up for lost time in the last year and a half. So that means that parents are holding back. They're reluctant to put them in extra things right now until they feel like things are sort of back to some normalcy. And so we're a little bit slow, but I am very confident that it's only going to take another 2 weeks or a month before parents are ready to start getting kids back in. So let us be patient.
You know, I was thinking about this, and rather than just cram all this stuff on them at, it seemed like just here, drink from this fire hose. Wouldn't it be better? What do you think about just making a school year the entire year? I know that kind of takes away from summer, but
you know what? There's a lot of school districts that do school year round, but they have longer breaks. So they will actually, one of my students in Australia, their school system will be on for 6 weeks and then they're off for 3. And then they're on for 6 weeks and off for 3. And they do that year round. And he seems to like it. He doesn't have a problem with it. Maybe it's always been the same for him, but I don't see anything wrong with that. I think it would definitely help with parent scheduling and so forth. And, I guess it's okay.
Yeah, that would be kind of a cool idea. You just never know. Look around. Yeah. I want to remind our listeners today that today's show page is at www.lifemasteryradio.net or .com. You can go there. Any links that we talk about, there's a link there to our guest today. And while you're on that page, sign up for the newsletter. Jackie takes time every week and creates a newsletter about who's been on the show, who's coming on the show, and a blog post about the most recent show. It's pretty cool. She gets some great insight. And if you missed the show, it's a great way to review and be enticed to go and actually listen to the live show.
Well, I like the way that you put the recording of the show at the end of the blog post, because that way they can just click and it's right there.
Yeah, for those of you that don't know, Jackie and I have a YouTube channel, and all of our shows go on that YouTube channel. Gosh, there's must be 300 of them. So if you're looking for something cool to do, something to review, something if you want to check out a book, I can't not overemphasize today's book is a very, very cool book. So you're going to want to definitely get this book. But all of our shows are there. Check out the YouTube channel, sign up for the newsletter, check out Jackie and I's book, both our books. There's links from lifemasteryradio.net. You can go to Amazon and get our books too. Let's see what else. I think that's about it. Is there anything I forgot, Jackie? You ready for the show?
It's really easy to get on to subscribe to our newsletter. Take out your smartphone. We all have one. And then text Life Mastery Radio to 22828. 22828, Life Mastery Radio. And then little message comes back to you, asks you for your email address, and you're in. That's all you have to do. It's really easy.
And
then you'll hear all about it.
That's all we use that email address for. We don't get access. We don't spam. We don't share. Unless, I was thinking about this, Jack, unless somebody gets into constant contact, but I think that's pretty secure.
Yeah, I've never heard of that. I guess it's possible, but I've never heard of that either.
I'm not going to open that door.
Probably not important to scammers because it's just people's name and information and email, right? There's nothing else in there.
No, no. But you can certainly spam people with bogus emails.
Sure.
Okay, on with the show. Our guest today is Michael Goddart. And Michael has been a seeker of wisdom from the age of 10, meditating since his teens and for more than 2 hours a day. Starting at 21, Michael has also been heightening his sense of knowing and accessing his soul consciousness for over 3 decades. During that time, he has penned 4 amazing, life-changing books. His latest amazing book is A New Now, your guide to mastering wisdom daily, achieving equilibrium, and empowering your nobler self. It is a life-changing manual on how to live in your expanded awareness of your innate higher consciousness on a daily basis. By mastering the wisdom in this book, you'll achieve equilibrium and not be tossed by the tides of everyday life. From equilibrium and your increasing aware consciousness, you'll make choices that honor yourself, your fellow beings, the planet, and the underlying unified consciousness. Michael, welcome to the show, my friend. We've tried 3 times to get you on. No, we've tried 2 other times to get you on the show. And today is the day.
Yay.
Welcome, sir.
Yay. The 3rd time is the charm.
That's right.
And
there was something that had to happen in order for it to be today.
Yeah, I'm delighted to be here, and thank you for the really lovely introduction. Just great. Yeah.
You know, first thing that pops to my mind, and I've heard this before, and I've considered it for myself, but for you, Michael, what does it mean to be a seeker?
Oh, I'm glad you asked that. To be a seeker is to be a seeker after truth. And I strongly feel that to be a seeker is the highest calling, because until you literally become the truth, you are a seeker. Some of the most advanced yogis and masters, I would still call seekers, because they have not yet merged their consciousness in the ocean of divine omniscience, infinity, eternity, whatever you call that. We all come from that same source, that supreme being, which has no name. So to be a seeker is to be going in that direction. Each of us has implanted within us what I would like to call a homing device. And I'm sure many of our listeners have heard of homing pigeons, which were used really strategically during World War II and for other purposes. Well, guess what that homing device is? That homing device is your soul. Your soul is part and parcel of the ultimate in truth, wisdom, bliss, love. The only catch is that to operate here on the physical plane, we had to take on obviously a body, otherwise we'd be disembodied and floating around. And if you've had experiences with spirits and ghosts, you'll have a sense of what I mean, but also a mind. Most of us really, our identity is our mind and our thoughts. So to be a seeker is to seek not only for the truth, but to gain mastery over your mind. Until you're a master of your mind, you're a slave of your mind, of every thought, of every impulse, of every desire. Desire is the juice that runs the creation. We become slaves of our desires. When they're strong enough, they form into karmas that must be paid off at some point. They may be good or bad karmas, but you're going to have to come back for it. One of the challenges, and something that a lot of people may think is really unfair living here, is that we're not really aware of our past. A lot of people think this is it. And when it's all over, it's all over. My mother, who read a lot of my spiritual books that I read, went to spiritual meetings. She said, you know, you think you know what's going to happen, but after I die, I'm not going to be flying around, and you'll be very surprised. Well, she died rather quickly. She wanted to live to be in her 90s, but she died when she was 83 rather quickly of pancreatic cancer.
Mm.
And I was very, very close to her. And I was with her just before she died. And the next morning, after a few hours sleep, I did my best to tune into her. And what I got was total surprise that she was still alive. And I wouldn't be surprised if she's somewhere already in a little girl's body down here. So to
Wow.
be a seeker is really to honor your life. Each of us has been given the most precious gift imaginable, and that is our human life. We've been here for millions of lives, but one of the laws of this creation is, for the most part, people can't remember their past lives. If you rise to a point high enough, you begin to know what your past lives are, because your soul knows everything, but it's just completely covered by all the mental wrappings that you've accumulated over all these lifetimes. And when you get to a really high place, let's say beyond the mind, and you're existing as pure soul, then your whole existence is an open book. You can know everything you wanted to. One of my desires when I came on my present spiritual path was that after I gave up this body, I didn't want to be pulled down by wanting to know what I did in this life, what I did in that life, and so on. So in 2013, I'd had a lot of intimations, a lot of strong intimations, but I started to recover my past lives. And it's just the information kept coming through. I kept coming through and I was accessing it. So we are here in a play, acting out a role. Sometimes your role calls you to utter really angry, discourteous dialogue. Other times you're just mum and taking it from somebody. Whatever we speak in our role, you're doing it with polished ease because the mind is in control.
Yeah.
So when we talk about life mastery, it's not only having a positive attitude, rising above the negativity, being above all the toxicity in our culture and gathering wisdom, but it's beginning to be a master of our mind. And we all have that potential. We all have that capacity. In my new book, go ahead, did you have a question?
I was just going to say, I've always thought as a seeker as somebody that is on that path, but more of an exploration of finding out who they are through their experiences of looking for what's out there.
Well, that certainly is our seeking on this earth plane. I mean, it's very important to know what your authentic path is, your authentic self. One of the problems of not being a master of our mind and not coming from our higher mind, which I can go into in a moment, is that we have all these subconscious beliefs embedded in us. We've taken on all these beliefs and rules from parents and peers and teachers. I mean, as soon as I got away from home, when I landed in my second year abroad overseas, I knew I wanted to be a writer. So being a seeker is also seeking what your path is very much this lifetime. It may be exploring all kinds of paths. It may simply being the best mother you can be in raising your children. But the thing is to get in touch with the authentic you. And that's what my book can do now, really, I feel, empowers people to do. But empowers people to become their nobler self, where your higher mind really begins to get the upper hand most of the time.
Away from
now,
me.
Your mind, think of your mind as a vast sphere of weather. You can have ice storms, you can have hurricanes, you can have beautiful sultry breezes, you can have gentle rain, you can have a perfectly sunny day. Well, that's also our life that's happening to us, and we have to adjust to weather as it comes to us. But
put the raincoat on, right? Get that umbrella.
Raincoat. And if you're in Seattle and it's 105 degrees, it's something to adjust to because you may not be used to it.
That's true.
Right.
So our earth is changing as we speak, partly due to us, but it's all part of the plan. Maybe we'll be more respectful and wise about how we treat Mother Earth and each other, rather than just be blindly going after profits, as some companies and people are want to do. But your higher mind, I want to get back to, that is the part of you that is most kind, giving, knowing, that wants to be of service. Your lower mind is really a slave of your lower passions of being angry, backbiting, lustful, egotistical. And the majority of people, their lower minds are predominant most of the time over their higher minds.
I really like the way you put it. You become a slave of your own lower mind. And that's your idea behind the book, is mastering your mind.
Right, right. And a lot of people, even if they're interested and they try to find out, there's a lot of confusion about your mind and your soul. And that's one of the things I really attempt to do in the book, is to clarify and distinguish between the mind and the soul. And within the mind, the lower mind, the habitual mind, and the higher mind. Now, the habitual mind, for me, is the mind that's really good at showing up. I mean, we both were on time for our show. It's the part of you that takes out the garbage every week, that remembers dutifully to brush your teeth and floss. It's the part of you that can handle the rhythm of everyday life. And not everyone could do that. My brother couldn't. He was quite an aggrieved, paranoid schizophrenic. He loved money, he would hoard it, but you could not bribe him to cut his nails. His nails were several inches long. It was really sad, but his habitual mind was an eclipse, let alone his higher mind. He was extremely violent all growing up. Finally, he was so pumped up with drugs that made him less violent. In his later years, he was just very, very meek. He could not handle going to a different restaurant when I would take him out for lunch. It was too much of a challenge. So we don't know, we are saddled with our mind, whether you or not you believe in reincarnation, unless you are definitely out of your way, coming out of the physical plane. I guarantee you're going to come back at some point, and you don't know what you'll be settled with. You may be crazy like my brother, and that may be paying off a huge debt, and it may be a very spiritual life for all we know. I can't comment on it. I have not seen his spiritual evolution.
Or lessons he learned, right?
And the lessons he learned, if he learned any. I don't know what lessons either of my parents learned. They were all, families are always completely different. Every one of my family, I call them first timers. It was the first time I had any contact with them. And believe me, they were an enormous challenge.
I'm pretty sure Jackie and I hung out some point somewhere.
No, if you meet somebody and you have this immediate feeling of familiarity, chances are you've had a life with them. Now, there have been a few people in my life, and a few times it happened in the gym. I was a bodybuilder for decades. I had 40 pounds more muscle before my intestine died a few years ago. And I had all these surgeries, but there were a few people I would meet in the distance, and all of a sudden I feel my mind going crazy. It was like my mind was saying, who is that person? I know who it is. Hello, hi. And it was just going a mile a minute. Well, as I recovered later, I was between lives with what I called my cohort of 7. These were 7 mind and soul entities that we were like in a classroom together. We were kind of like learning spiritual and life lessons together. I had more incarnations with them than anybody. And every time we finally actually met, it was just so powerful because a million things were going on in the background. We'd been brother and sister, mother and father. We stabbed each other in the back. We'd gone through a lot together. So,
Michael, that you're reminding me of a story that I just have to reflect on. And I grew up in Everett. I went through grade school, high school. My present machine shop is in Everett. I visit the post office just about every day because I have a post office box. I have to buy stamps. I have to stand in line, all of that. And it's happened to me on numerous occasions. I'll be standing in line and looking at the back of somebody's head, and I instantly know who they are from high school or from grade school or from another acquaintance. It's mind-boggling that I can pick up on that.
Oh, well, not really, but you're at the state where you can. It's not surprising. I mean, your higher mind and your soul really has that sense of knowing. I mean, when I met members of my cohort of 7, and we're all alive this lifetime, and I met all of them, it was just, and they, after my book came out, my spiritual memoir, In Search of Lost Lives, they each acknowledged that they had felt the same thing for the most part. So no, we have that knowing. I mean, there was somebody in my spiritual group, really, he was like a paragon of virtue. He was looked up really highly, but we had a strong dislike for each other. It was really tangible. And so I finally, after that memoir came out, I thought, what was going on with him? Because he was just adulated within our group, and I didn't have the highest opinion of him. Well, he had cheated me really badly quite a few times in the past life, and I'd never gotten over it. So discovering that was my chance to forgive him and let it go. And forgiveness is, by the way, one of the sources of wisdom I write about. I write about 5 sources of wisdom in my book. And I was surprised. Basically, the book all came through intuitively. I've been writing all these articles and Q&A interviews for In Search of Lost Lives. And I was just getting ready to hit all the outlets that my publicist never got to. And I was just so tired of not being able to write something new. So I just really asked my higher self, is there another book I should be writing now? And I got a definite yes. And I basically intuited the book word by word. And the first word to come through, if I may share that, was wisdom. And so the working title originally was Mastering Wisdom Daily. And then the subtitle came through really easily right after that, 10 Keys for Achieving Equilibrium. And then when I had all these notes that I was writing in between interviews and promoting Search of Lost Lives, I took all these notes with me to Florida to see if this was a book I should really be writing, because I had notes on other books I'd had for years that I really wanted to write. And as soon as I started to work with it, the book started to happen. Wow. And once I sat down and actually knew I was going to write the book, a new now came through immediately right at the beginning of the book. But what really gelled it, and we kind of mentioned, we were talking about this in the green room. While I was in Florida, starting to revise the notes, and it just kept growing and growing, I went to the East Coast, from the West Coast of Florida to Delray Beach to look around and stay there. And I went out for dinner in a vegetarian restaurant. And it was just me and this really sweet couple. They were probably 20 years old, also having dinner there. Although most of the time they were getting up and taking pictures of their dinner and posting it. So it was quite an extended dinner for them. And it occurred to me, if I was like my mother and I had pancreatic cancer and I was dying in a couple months, and I was in my 40s and leaving 20-year-old twins, a son and a daughter, this is the book I'd want to leave them. It would be like the guidebook for their entire life, something they could keep as a companion and go back to time after time, because I wouldn't be there to help them and talk to them. So that really kind of gelled and they were like my audience while I was writing the book in a way.
Wow. Jackie, I know you're just itching. We haven't gotten you in there yet.
Yeah.
Well,
right.
first I want to say, Michael, so you have twin children?
No, I saw this couple in the restaurant and it hit me. What if these were my twin son and daughter?
Spiritual
gotcha.
And
Okay.
I was dying in 2 months.
Yeah.
This is the book I'd want to give to them. for
So the
rest of
question
our
I
life.
have for you then is, what does it mean to achieve equilibrium? Because that's part of the title of your book. I know what it means to have equilibrium physically, but I don't think that's what you're referring to, right? So what do you mean by that?
Well, equilibrium can be understood in many senses. Equilibrium is a dynamic balance where you're at your spiritual center and you can handle really anything that comes to you in the best way possible, whether it's an emotional onslaught from within you or from other people. Really, equilibrium and wisdom go hand in hand. If you're trying to access your wisdom and grow on it, if your mind is all scattered and you're in a million places, you're in disequilibrium. So being in equilibrium basically is being in your spiritual center. It's being present in the now. It's being grounded. It's being positive. It's being at rest. There are like 10 states I mentioned when I describe being at your spiritual center. So in terms of wisdom, you want to be in your best state of equilibrium, and it's up to each of us to discover when we're not at our spiritual center and what are the best ways to return to it. Now, for some people, maybe doing something physical, like it may be swimming. Like if you've had a really bad day at work, you've had an argument or two, the best thing for you may be to go swimming. If you have a mantra or an affirmation, you can even repeat it while you're swimming. For me, it was working out. I love going to the gym. Every time I left, I felt so much better mentally and physically. And maybe washing your car, and maybe singing or drumming, and maybe journaling. So, and the key is to know what at this particular moment will best bring you to your spiritual center. It may be being quiet and meditating. For a lot of people, it's taking a walk in nature. And just to let your thoughts unwind and be there. So it's sort of getting back to your higher self.
Yeah. Okay. Awesome.
Fascinating.
So, yeah.
Go ahead, Jeff.
No, I was just going to say how it sounds like you've been from a very young point a seeker, as you called it, or someone who's had this spiritual mindset. Is that because your parents did? How did you learn to do that?
No, absolutely not. My mother was quite an avowed agnostic, and my father, I'm not really sure. But it's all because I was working on it in past lives. I was an active seeker for 3 lives before this one. When I was an architect in post-American Revolution, Baltimore, I came across the Comte de Saint-Germain, who some people may be familiar with. And I was just enthralled with this guy who was a master who purportedly had lived for centuries. He just had the most fascinating life. So I read everything I could on him. We were really struggling, but I managed to take 3 trips by stagecoach to Philadelphia to find better sources to read. Now, in terms of fate, 4 lives ago, when I was an actor and playwright in Denmark, the Comte de Saint-Germain was living at that time. He was my contemporary, but I didn't know about him. So I don't know really to what state he was evolved. But the thing is, another point I'd like to share that I don't often, I rarely do on shows, but I think people would be open to it. There is always a perfectly realized saint or master on this planet if you're at the stage of seeking where you want to meet one. And that's why seeking is so important, because our mind is so dominant, even for someone whose higher mind is predominant. My lower mind can rear its ugly head from time to time.
We are human, right?
We are human, and humans are really a reflection of God. We each of us has this potential, and this is a powerful term, but I'm going to use it. Each of us has a potential for God realization. That's really the purpose, the ultimate purpose of the human life. First comes self-realization. Self-realization really means that your true self Your true identity is soul, not this mind you've taken on, which is absolutely essential for operating on this plane of being. But self-realization is at this point in your spiritual journey when you're going through these inner realms of higher and higher vibration, when you leave behind the mind and you realize, I am soul, that's who I am. And then you can continue your spiritual journey all the way back to the Godhead. But there's no way you can do it on your own. You need a living master.
Or somebody to study, to give you. And that's what's so cool about your book, Anew Now. You know, to me, this book is a daily reflection. This is a book that you would have and just pick it up and read one of the wisdoms. I think there are 33 daily, or what do you call them?
Well, the 33 wisdoms, there are the 11.
Oh, that's right. And then they're broken down into
there are the 11 loving wisdoms, the 11 guiding wisdoms, and the 11 evolutionary wisdoms. And they're all like part of that group and on a higher and higher level. But that's exactly really how to work at it. Wherever you are, you need to honor where you are. And that goes back to your saying, you know, we should be seekers. As part of the book, I explain the benefit of what I call a journey journal. And you can download that from my website, goddart.com, Goddart.
More and more of our guests all reflect on that action that you should be taking in journaling.
Yes. And for some people, they may not like to journal, but they can do a voice journal. That's very easy. The key thing about, and obviously some people like to write by hand, and that's often very creative. But if you write by typing or transfer your handwriting to typing, you can search for it. Right. So if you download the Journey Journal, and you can call it anything you want, the main thing is always to find what resonates best with you. So you can pick up, you can read one of the wisdoms or one of the equilibriums, like balance, being, having, and doing. And then you can write what you're doing and what works. Or if you're trying to learn how to return to your spiritual center, if you do something and it really works, you can make a journal entry and then go back to it. It'll be searchable. So
your journal is free.
Oh, absolutely. It's simply a Word document with all the many sections. There are over 60 sections and 10 chapters. And you can write within the sections, or you can just retitle it. It's for you to do whatever you want with. It's a Word document.
Way to be organized. And people can find that at www.goddart. That's Goddart, Goddart.com.
Goddart. If you're listening, you have nothing to write with, think of a love dart coming from God. So there are 2 Ds and it ends in T. And all you need to do is go to free media. I've got plenty of interviews. I have different downloads. Something, once you read the book, and which is very unusual, I have an essay that was published in a literary magazine. It's called The Grace of Shadows Heeded, which is explained in the essay. And it's all the signs from the age, of 5 or so that showed me that I was coming on a spiritual path. Wow. And this may trigger your own memories of childhood and being a preteen and a teen, of signs of where you were meant to go, things that came to you automatically. So
you were talking earlier about the higher mind and the lower mind. And Michael, I'm curious, because I've noticed this, that people have to achieve some kind of desperation before they start to explore or seek, as you would say, their higher mind. There has to be some, and that doesn't necessarily need to be the case, but in my own personal experience, I mean, I was exposed to alcoholism 3 times of being put into treatment for it until I got it. And then my whole life changed. I became, like you said, a seeker. I was hungry for the truth. And all of that exploration really brought me to who I was. And When I learned how to put a throttle on my mind, I think that was the biggest revelation I ever had. It's almost like I put a throttle on the ego, really.
Well, the ego is really the enemy. I mean, you can express healthy ego. To be here, we have to have an ego. But no, we are up against ego. That is one of the 5 down pulling perversions. And I write a lot about learn to be aware of and manage your ego.
Yeah.
You're never going to be a master of your ego until you're a master of your mind. But for now, rather than barging in and being boastful and being dominant over people, you can kind of step back and watch your ego and rein it in.
Third party perspective is something that I was trained to do, is to observe. Just pull yourself back and observe what you're doing.
Right. Thank you. And I write about your muscle of observation, your observer muscle. So I asked the essential question very early in the book. And the essential question is, how can I live as my aware self? So ask yourself that question throughout the day. Maybe you're just going on and about something that's really negative because you've established this friend, which is great to be able to talk about anything, but it can be an excuse for gossiping and backbiting. So stop while they're gossiping and ask yourself, how can I be my aware self? And it's like, oh, maybe I shouldn't be so negative, and maybe I can shift the conversation to something positive and get both of us out of our negative mental tracks.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So tell us about these past lives that you had, Michael. Did you have 88 of them? Is that what I read?
Well, I recovered and wrote about 88, Jackie. Actually, I've had millions of past lives in every form. I did recover for sure the number of human lives I had, and that was 4,137 human lives.
You've been around the horn a little bit.
I've been around. I've lived on 2 other planets before Earth, and believe me, they were a lot easier. This is definitely the school of hard knocks.
Well, how does someone begin to be aware of that and understand that?
Well, the thing, Jackie, which is really sounds totally unfair, is most of us are not meant to remember or know our past lives. There are many cases of children where this call of unawareness is not hardened yet, where they have all these past life knowings and they even know who relatives are. But like by the time you reach 5 or something, pretty much you're locked into this false reality.
That's how they find out who the Dalai Lama is. The next Dalai Lama is they
remember who they were. Yeah.
And they find these children, and through inquisitions.
Exactly. Sure. They verify because they remember where their silk slippers were and where this was, that nobody could possibly know. It's just this little kid in a nowhere village.
It's fascinating.
And by the way, speaking of Tibet, I have a really, I don't want to start crying, but a really soft spot for Tibet because I had a very key life there. That is the life just 12 lives ago when my higher mind became predominant over my lower mind a majority of the time. The 2 lives prior to that, they were pretty much in balance. All the lives prior to that, the lower mind was predominant. So that is a life where I came in contact with 2 monks. I was actually in a very, very high political position in the government in Lhasa. I was like the Secretary of Diplomacy. It was during when we were having a really tough time with China. But I met these 2 monks and it just hit me. I thought, wow, these are humans who are different. They are truly spiritually evolved. So that kind of supercharged my search. And if you read my memoir, In Search of Lost Lives, you can really see how it kind of speeded up after that, how it became more and more focused. Like 7 lives back, I was this priest in Prague, and my high school friend was a cardinal. I kind of relived that as a living movie. But I didn't feel like I was getting to the kernel, the grist of religion. So my next life, I was a monk in Slovenia. I was a Carthusian monk. So I just kept advancing. And then the life after that, I was in India, which I call the happiest life. And I was initiated at a very young age into Raja Yoga. So the whole idea of meditation was not at all formal to me. But I came out of that life. My main desire was I wanted an all-embracing love. I had an arranged marriage. There really was hardly any love there, although I loved my 3 daughters. But this is kind of surprising. Wanting this all-embracing love, from there, my destiny formed. I was born in Denmark, and my mother dropped me off at like 6 weeks at an orphanage in the winter. Luckily, they found me. I didn't freeze to death. So I grew up just wanting love anywhere, anyhow I could find it. I ran away and joined an acting troupe at a really young age. So I was an actor in that lifetime, just seeking love wherever I could get it. I felt best when the performance was over and I was getting all this adulation and applause and cheering. But that wasn't enough.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
You know, one thing I like to ask my guests,
Mhm.
since your book came out, I think this book came out in 2020. You wrote it before COVID.
Well, it came out May of this year, actually. I
Oh.
finished it just when COVID was exploding.
Yeah,
Mm.
And
What-
it's really the ideal book to have during a pandemic or any
totally.
kind of emergency, because it really shows you how to work with your intuition to navigate all the challenges of everyday life.
And not let that controlling mind or that slave mind take over your life. But I was curious, what
Mhm.
kind of testimonials, what are you hearing from people after they've, well, I don't know that it's a book that you read, but what are you hearing from people that have utilized the book? How's that?
Well, it just absolutely helps them navigate all the challenges of life. It really depends on the person, because somebody could be on a spiritual path, or somebody could just be opening up to spirituality.
Right. And it's
It-
planting
it-
the seeds. Yeah.
It's just planting the seeds. It's just every time, every person gets something different out of it. It's the kind of book you can read over and over again, because you're going to keep being in a different place. Just any of the wisdoms. I mean, the wisdom of love is the last wisdom of the loving wisdoms. That's a very profound wisdom I write about. So every time you're going to revisit it, even if you don't read that section word by word, it's going to be different. You know, maybe somebody's been really cutting toward you and making nasty remarks. Well, you may learn how to respond in a way that best serves you and the other person, and maybe by just sharing your truth in a loving way, or maybe just stepping away. But all these wisdoms are going to raise you to a higher and higher level of life.
And especially the first one, you just talked about it. I would say to that person, read the first wisdom in Michael Goddart's book. Maybe you could reflect on that first one, just to give us an idea of some of the wisdoms that are throughout the entire book.
Well, unfortunately, I have a terrible memory. So if there's one that you would want to ask
Humanity.
me about.
How to be a human.
Oh, the wisdom of humane interactions. Yeah, obviously that's the first wisdom. Thank you for jogging my memory. Yeah, that is like every opportunity, every time we meet somebody, that is your chance to act humanely. I mean, being a human being who is really part and parcel of God, and to realize that that person, their true nature is part and parcel of life. That's a very key wisdom. And scientific studies have shown that the more like interactions you have with people, that really helps your longevity. A lot of these retirement communities, people have like a bridge group or a book club that meets regularly. And you have these 95-year-old women, they're playing bridge like experts, because it's not only because they're keeping their mind active, but they're having this enjoyable interaction with people. But I want to rise it to a higher level. So that's why the wisdom that came to me was the wisdom of humane interaction. It's really acting with kindness, with truth, for empathy for what the other person's going through. You may come across somebody who's really kind of act shitty, but for all you know, their son may have come down with cancer.
You have no
tattoo.
idea what they're
We have no
experiencing.
idea what they're going through. We also have no idea what their destiny is ordering them through. So we should never judge. People are constantly judging and calculating.
Well, not only
That-
that, too, Michael.
Yeah.
People get offended, right? They they have, and then they hold that person accountable and responsible for them being offended, and the person has no idea what trigger they flipped or what they said that
Right.
put this person offline.
That is so true. And the hardest thing, and I write about this later on, the hardest thing for most people is to talk about your relationship with someone. And if somebody offended you, you're going to hang on to that and remember it.
Pack it around.
And until
And that person
you
might not even
communicate,
know.
and they may not even know, it may be completely unintentional. So love is a function of communication. If you can speak your truth, you know, 3 years ago, I'm really, to be honest, embarrassed to bring this up, but you said such and such, and it really hurt me. And I just want to know where you're coming from.
Right.
So
Jackie, we only have about 5 minutes left. Was there something else on your mind? I've hardly heard from you at all.
I'm sorry, I've been kind of monopolizing.
No, I loved it.
You have great stuff.
Great. Yeah, it's great stuff. And so my question for you is, Michael, what is the one thing then that we bring from all of these past lives? Is it our mind? Is it our wisdom? What is it that we bring from all of these past experiences that we've had?
Well, it really depends on your destiny and what comes to the fore. Like there are several past lives that are really resonate with me this lifetime. Like when I was a Greek philosopher, when I was a monk, when I was an English banker living abroad. Those 3 lives resonate the most. But we kind of come with the mind that we've been growing all these lifetimes. So we come with these mental patterns. And I'm glad you asked that, because for people who really don't believe in reincarnation or want to believe in it, the one thing I really do feel that In Search of Lost Lives achieves is that I mentioned all these idiosyncrasies, talents, and abilities I had as a kid, as a preteen, as a teen. They're just things you wouldn't expect. And I link those to particular past lives and the experiences in those lives where they came from. Like, this is a little embarrassing to admit, but it's all made clear in the book. I had this unusual aversion to the countries Spain and China. And I had no idea why. I would have a lot of anger come up when I would see an army of Orthodox Jews marching down the street. Well, that one I can just say relates to life when I was a Jew living in a shuttle and I was ostracized and treated really horribly. So everything can be known, everything ultimately makes sense, but we're laboring under the veil of unknowing. And this is your chance to learn, to know, to expand your awareness until it's infinite.
Fascinating. Michael, we're going to have you back. I think there is so much more that we could have a discussion about. And I'm looking at Jackie and I'm thinking her mind is just pretty cool. It's pretty cool to be a witness of. Thank you so much, sir, for being on this show today. I hope, did I fulfill my promise of you having a blast?
I did have a blast. I really wasn't even here. I mean, I was here, but it was wonderful. It was just so much fun to share. I had a great time.
Jackie, any takeaways? You were so quiet, but yet I could tell you were contemplating and thinking and.
Well, it's a lot to take in.
Yeah, it is a lot to take in, but I am fascinated by your knowledge and your experience. And I appreciate very much that you've put that all down for us to read. I'm sure there's so much more to come in other books and so forth, but grateful to you for sharing what you have with us so that we can increase our wisdom as well. So it was great, Michael. It's nice to meet you and talk with you.
Really a delight meeting you and being with you. Well, we've met before, but but being on the show today.
Right.
Oh, I hope you enjoyed today's show. Remember, you can find today's show page at www.lifemasteryradio.net or .com. And the link to Michael's website is right there. And you can go there and get his Word document of the journal, the Wisdom Journal. No, what did you call it, Michael?
Journey
the Journey Journal. the Journey Journal, and I think I'll be checking that out. Please tell a friend about the show. Life Mastery Radio is live every week. Jackie and I bring you great topics, great authors, and great ideas, thoughts and ideas for you to use on your very own life mastery journey. That's all we have time for. I hope that you choose to check out Anew Now. It's a really cool book. It's a good book to have around and just reference. It will brighten your day with just reading a simple wisdom. Lastly, please make it a great day, because it is all about choice. And choose to check out Michael's book, and choose to check out Jackie's website. And you can check out my book too while you're at it. Bye-bye for now.
Bye.
Thank you for tuning into Life Mastery with Todd Allen, the talk radio show that dives into the science of higher consciousness. Join Todd and his guests weekly at 10 a.m. Pacific Time and learn how to live a peaceful life. For more information on Todd and his guests, visit his website at www.lifemasteryradio.net. That's www.lifemasteryradio.net.